Hello, this is Elizabeth Clare Brewington, and I am with Discover Brightside, a multimedia video channel and podcast. And as we prepare this Women History Month, we are very excited to meet some women empowerers and women who are making history and women who are making a difference in this crazy world that we live in. And I'm delighted to have with me in my studio Sandra Lee, and she is going to talk to us about anger management. So, have you been angry recently about something you heard on the TV, or somebody banged your car, or some family relationship? Well, then this video is for you. And we will be giving you some tips and telling you when it's serious and when it's, something that you can control. So, Sandra, tell us about you and give us a little background. And how did you find yourself doing such a difficult topic like anger management?
Well, let me start off, Elizabeth, by telling you my own wake-up story when it comes to anger. And it's lovely to be introduced to your audience, recognizing that anger is a normal emotion to have. And I get angry all the time. Big things, little things. I used to be angry for weeks at a time. And I used to really give myself a hard time about this. What is wrong with me? Nobody else does this. And I used to beat myself up really horribly about it. One of the primary tools that I use is human design. It's a chart based on your birthday. It tells you a lot about who you are. And when I was listening to my teacher, Karen Parker, talking about human design, I learned things about myself and my life, about anger, that are practical and relevant. I learned that anger is normal for me, that judging myself for being angry was me judging myself for just being the person that I am, and that I could stop doing that, accept the anger as part of my blueprint, part of my design, and learn to manage it. So now, when I get angry, as I was like, okay, I'm doing that anger thing. Do I need to talk to somebody? Is there something I need to do? And then let it go. Changed everything. It turned this aspect of myself that I used to really hate and become peaceful about it and learn to manage it.
Wow. So I'm excited to learn about this. So yes, I guess everybody has some anger, but it's a human being. I mean, as human beings, if you feel like the world has a standard, and if you don't fit in the norm of just being happy and nice all the time, so this is good, because you got to love yourself first. And whether you're an angry person or a normal person, you got to get to know yourself. So, what special, I mean, you've told us your journey, but what inspired you to really start your own coaching practice and take this on?
I've always helped people, always working on healing people, always making a difference. And I have a bachelor's in chemistry, like a science degree. And I started doing massage therapy and helping people make sense of what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their bodies, and become empowered to be able to help themselves. I really like helping people find where they are, understand where they are, and then be empowered to be able to help themselves move forward from that place.
That sounds like such an enabler and a conqueror and an empowerer. So that I applaud you. Now let's talk about anger, which is just regular anger, and then which we'd call, let's say, healthy anger, and then the unhealthy anger.
There is something that I have started to talk about that I call the anger spectrum. So when I am not doing the things that I know I should do, whether it's in my business or in my relationship or in my health, there's a judgment that I can have towards myself for not doing those normal things. That's normal anger, but it's not something we would necessarily always call anger. So I'm calling it part of this anger spectrum. If you and your spouse or your partner are just, not having a good day together, there's a little bit of a glitchy energy. That's still part of that anger spectrum and learning to be able to manage that. And then, of course, it can escalate to being even bigger anger that looks like what we normally think of as anger, as conflict. So looking at all of those as being on this spectrum so that you can learn to manage where you are on the spectrum and prevent things, ideally, from getting to the blow up point and being able to defuse things before they get to that point. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do that?
Yeah, that would be terrific. Yeah. So what are some of the triggers that people should be aware of? Like when do people feel like, this anger is like, uncontrollable, or what are the triggers that you see?
Well, let me talk about what I was just saying, okay? Preventing the blow up.
Yes.
Okay. So say you and your spouse are going along and you tend to have the same sorts of disagreements or places where you get stuck. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's not about, housework or who's going to take out the garbage. Whatever that area is in your relationship that just tends to be a consistent challenge. When you decide, okay, I want to do something about this dynamic in my relationship, and your partner probably isn't going to initiate doing things differently. And you decide, okay, I'm going to be the person that's going to do something different. That's a really big step. Deciding I am not happy with the way things are going. I am going to do something about it. And I am not going to count on my partner doing it first. I'm going to initiate the change from over here. That is the first most empowering thing you can do. Be the person who is going to make the difference.
And so what should one do? So let's say you're blowing up. What advice would you give to that person? Walk out of the room, not talk to the person? I mean, what would you do?
That's a good thing, right? To pause. First, you have to pause, right? Instead of jumping in with your response and then they jump in with their response, I was like, okay, my pattern is to jump in with a response. So I'm going to not do that.
Right.
I'm going to pause and I'm going to step back. And something that will start to change the dynamic between you and your spouse immediately is changing your pattern, changing what you habitually do. And that might initially cause them to get upset. There's something I call the pigeonhole. Okay. So if my partner expects me to have this set of behaviors, these are the only allowable behaviors that I have in this relationship. Okay. And when I start responding differently with something out here, my partner must like, hey, you're not playing your part. What are you doing? Right? That might upset them at first. Hopefully, it's not gotten to the point in your relationship of being violent, but sometimes it has. But somebody needs to change something first. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
If
There
both
has
of
to
us are,
be,
yeah,
yeah,
if both of us are always doing the same thing, you're
triggering each other and
you're never going to get anywhere else. So somebody has to start changing the behavior by going outside of the pigeonhole. Okay. When I go outside of the pigeonhole, my partner's just like, "Ah, you're not playing your part, but it's changing the pattern already."
yeah.
So by pausing, not giving the same old response that you've always given, and changing your behavior starts changing the dynamic. And you kind of have to navigate it from there, but you have to start taking responsibility for it and start changing it. Ultimately, you want to reach a point where you are able to have a conversation with your spouse that's like serious, real, and both being present. and ideally not upset. Can you find a time to have a conversation with each other where you're not upset? Truthfully, if you don't have access to that, it's gone it's gone farther than you're going to be able to handle just the two of you. And
Hmm.
seeing someone for a counseling or something like that is probably going to be required. If you don't have the ability to say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you where we're both calm and able to talk through so that we can find our way through this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the awareness and then, taking responsibility and then taking some sort of action. And then also, I guess, recognizing the triggers because sometimes it's the same
Mhm.
pattern every time. So you
Yeah.
need to recognize that, okay, this is going to hit me now, and I'm going to not scream and I'm not going to get upset. It's it's happened before, and this is what I'm going to do. So let's move a little bit, not too much into domestic violence, because I think when you think of anger and the bad parts of it, is that it affects your work, it affects your business, you're unable to be productive, you're hurting yourself more than anyone else, and
Yes.
then hurting your partner. So, what are some of the warning signs, in a domestic violence situation? And when should one feel threatened or it's time to leave or time for seeking help? I know we talked a little bit about that before, but what is it that advice would you give to domestic violence couples that are going through it from both sides?
If you as the individual, okay, are not already seeking counseling or coaching or something from outside of the relationship, start there,
Yeah.
right? Before you are at a point of making a decision about making a major change,
Yes.
get outside help.
Yes.
Get outside help that doesn't involve your partner, just you and someone else, so that you start to get more clear about where you are and how you feel and what your needs are and what needs aren't being met and those kinds of things, so that you have an outside of the relationship where you can be heard and start to feel safe being yourself at all. I would say that's
Yeah. Yeah.
long before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long before it gets so bad.
Yeah.
So tell us about your coaching practice. This is where you come in. So at what point does one seek a coach and seek services like yours? And tell us about what you offer.
Yeah. Um, Ideally, someone would be working with me before it gets to the point of actual violence and actual needing to have like serious intervention, where you're still at the point of being able to initiate having a conversation with your partner, where you're actually still talking with each other and able to interact without have a fight all of the time, where there's some level of health still,
Yes.
functionality remaining in the
There's
relationship.
some hope. Yes.
Yeah. If not, then you probably need someone, more seriously counseling, because I'm not doing counseling. I'm just doing, coaching and healing work.
Yes.
Um, but if you are at a point in your relationship where you are still able to talk and are still able to experiment, then working with me will help you understand yourself, which is most important. Start by understanding yourself and who you are, what your motivations are, and then I work with something called the Human Design Chart, which is based on where the planets were at the time you were born. And it says a huge amount about who you are and what your gifts are, what your challenges are, and where you might have stuck places. And understanding that helps you, just like I was talking about, understanding myself and anger. Um, Understanding, in this disagreement that we have, this is what I'm making it mean. And when we understand me and my chart, that makes sense. When I understand my partner in their chart, I was like, oh, they're making a completely different thing out of this. And so understanding your motivation and their motivation really helps to make sense of what's happening. And it gives you access to being interacting in that relationship in a different way. So starting to give you things to try, things to experiment, practical strategies for starting to have this relationship start to be more workable.
Wow, such great advice and such great things. So, how can people reach you on your website? What is your website?
Miracleinspirations.com. And if people want to schedule a conversation with me, I have an Aligned for Success action plan call that you can schedule with me. And if you go to shinewithsandra.com /CC,
That
that's
sounds
a
great.
place where you can schedule a conversation with me.
Oh, I love it. We're Brightside and Shine with Sandra. So there you have it. And thank you for watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever this video will appear. And especially during the promotion for our 6th annual Women Empowerment Series that's starting on the 23rd of this month. And we hope all of you will join online or in person. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, write us a comment, tell us where you're from. And if you liked what you saw, then tell us what you think. And if you're going through anger management or you're in a situation that needs some help, write us a comment, tell us what you think. Thank you for watching Discover Brightside. And Sandra, you've been discovered on the Brightside Network.
Thank you.